Those of you who are historians, history buffs, just love anything history, regardless of the location, ethnicity, race, you just love history. Okay, have you ever wondered, or has there ever been a definitive official reason as to why those called Black Americans were reclassified several times? Did the U.S. government give a reason as to why they reclassified us several times? 2, have you ever looked at what took place in this country after we were reclassified? Okay, listen to this right quick. There's no single official number as to how many times we were reclassified. I did a little research. I didn't see an official number. Because states varied from the federal government, there have been roughly 6 major federal shifts designed to reclassify indigenous Black Americans, often aimed at erasing the indigenous portion of that identity to secure land rights and maintain racial hierarchies. Many find it difficult to document their ancestral lineage due to the paper genocide that identified all non-white individuals as colored, regardless of their identity. I'll be back. Hello everyone, thank you for returning. New people, new listeners, you're welcome, and thank you so much for listening. Check out the whole video, you guys. Check out the whole video. Okay, now, before I get into the content, I want to play this video for you of Smokey Robinson saying a poem he, I guess, created or wrote. It was a protest against what Jesse Jackson did when he and some of his cohorts got together and made a decision on their own to change our names from Black Americans to African Americans. We didn't like it then, and we still don't like it today. Okay, check this out.
I love being Black. I love being called Black. I love being an American. I love being a Black American. But as a Black man in this country, I think it's a shame that every few years we get a change of name. Since those first ships arrived here from Africa that came across the sea, there were already Black men in this country who were free. And as for those who came over on those terrible boats, they were called nigger and slave and told what to do and how to behave. And then Master started tripping, doing his midnight tipping down to the slave shacks where he forced he and great-great-grandma to be together. And if great-great-grandpa protested, he got tarred and feathered. And at the same time, the Black men in the country who were free were mating with the tribes like the Apache and the Cherokee. And as a result of all that, we're a parade of every shade. And in this late day and age, you can be sure there ain't too many of us in this country whose bloodline is pure. But according to a geographical genealogy study published in Time magazine, the Black African people were the first on the scene. So for what it's worth, the Black African people were the first on Earth, and through migration, our characteristics started to change and rearrange to adapt to whatever climate we migrated to. And that's how I became me, and you became you. So if we're going to go back, let's go all the way back. And if Adam was Black and Eve was Black, then that kind of makes it a natural fact that everybody in America is an African American. Everybody in Europe is an African European, everybody in the Orient is an African Asian, and so on and so on. That is, if the origin of man is what we're going to go on. And if one drop of black blood makes you black like they say, then everybody's black anyway. So quit trying to change my identity. I'm already who I was meant to be. I'm a Black American, born and raised. And Brother James Brown wrote a wonderful phrase. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Say it loud, I'm Black and I'm proud. Because I'm proud to be Black. And I ain't never lived in Africa. And because my great-great-granddaddy on my daddy's side did, don't mean I want to go back. Now, I have nothing against Africa. It's where some of the most beautiful places and people in the world are found. But I've been blessed to go a lot of places in this world. And if you ask me where I choose to live, I pick America, hands down. Now, by and by, we were called Negroes, and after a while, that name was banished. Anyway, Negro is just how you say black in Spanish. Then we were called colored, which yet everybody's one color or another, and I think it's a shame that we hold that against each other. And it seems like we reverted back to a time when being called black was an insult, even if it was another black man who said that a fight would result, because we've been so brainwashed that black was wrong, till even the yellow niggas and the black niggas couldn't get along. But then came the 1960s, when we struggled and died to be called equal and black, and we walked with pride with our heads held high and our shoulders pushed back, and black was beautiful. But I guess that wasn't good enough, because now here they come with some other stuff. Who comes up with this shit anyway? Was it one or a group of niggas just sitting around one day, feeling a little insecure again about being called black, and decided that African American sounded a little more exotic? Well, I think you were being a little more neurotic. It's that same mentality that got Amos and Andy put off the air because they were embarrassed about the way the characters spoke. And as a result of that action, a lot of wonderful black actors ended up broke, when we were just laughing and having fun about ourselves. So I say, fuck you if you can't take a joke. You didn't see the Beverly Hillbillies being protested by white folks. And if you think that, of course you think that being called African American sets all black people's minds at ease, since we affectionately call each other nigga, I affectionately say to you, nigga, please. How come I didn't get a chance to vote on who I'd like to be? Who gave you the right to make that decision for me? I ain't under your rule or in your dominion, and I'm entitled to my own opinion. Now, there are some African Americans here, but they recently moved here from places like Kenya, Ethiopia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Zaire. But not a brother whose family's lived in this country for generations, occupying space in all the locations: New York, Miami, LA, Detroit, Chicago. Even if he's wearing a dashiki and sporting an afro. And if you go to Africa in search of your race, you'll find out quick you're not an African American. You're just a black American in Africa taking up space. Why you keep trying to attach yourself to a continent? Well, even if you got the chance to go and you went, most people there wouldn't even claim you as one of them, as a purebred daughter or son of them. Your heritage is right here now, no matter what you call yourself or what you say. And a lot of people died to make it that way. And if you think America's a leader on inequality and suffering and grieving, how come there's so many people coming and so few leaving? Rather than all this fine thought with America shit you promoting, if you want to change something, use your privilege. Get to the polls, come and support me. God knows we've earned the right to be called American Americans and be free at last. And rather than you moving forward with progress, you're dwelling in the past. We struggled too long, we've come too far. And to the folks that know who we were, let's be proud of who we are. We're the only people whose name is always a trend. When is this shit gonna end? Look at all the different colors of our skin. Black is not our color, it's our core. It's what we've been living and fighting and dying for. But if you choose to be called African American and that's your preference, then I give you that reference. But I know on this issue I don't stand alone on my own. And if I do, then let me be me. And I'd appreciate it if when you see me, you say, there goes a man who says it loud. I'm black. I'm a black American, and I'm proud. Because I love being an American. And I love being black. I love being called black. Yeah, I said it. And I don't take it back.
I discovered Mr. Robertson's poem when I researched what Jesse Jackson did, what he took upon himself to do for us. I don't understand why people think they have a right to speak for us. Have you noticed that? It seemed like everybody in the world think they have a right to speak for us. We didn't ask you to. And when you need to speak up for us, when you need to make demands for us, you're quieter than a church mouse. But anywho, I really appreciate this poem because he spoke the words of how millions of those called Black Americans feel. We was fine with it. I mean, damn, you changed our name several times. Why did you have to change it to African American? The names of 2 continents. The names of places. You got people who come from the continent of Africa who do not like being called African American. So why would you call us a rejected name? Okay, so, and then you would think that with the status and the power and the connections that Mr. Jackson had, why would you choose to call us African Americans instead of calling us our true names before the reclassification? So I believe he was used as a tool. I believe he was used as a tool to change our name. So all we need to do is find out what happened in that time frame for him to come out and be a mouthpiece for those who hide in the background. Okay, let's get on with this content. Jesse Jackson was encouraged to change our names from Black to African American, as he and the other culprits said Black was too passe. Now, he didn't say let's change our names so that we can use our name change to demand what was stolen from us via the U.S. government. He changed our name because they claim it was too passe. Black American is attached to so much power, so much rich history that is not attached to African American. This man seemed, like I said, he had the ability and he had the status. He even went so far as to run or campaign to be the United States president. Why did you use your power, influence, and authority to change us to a name that many other groups reject? When Martin Luther King Jr. was alive, the dominant and most acceptable term for Black Americans was Negro. The term Black was also used particularly by younger activists in the later part of the Civil Rights Movement, but it was not the widely accepted term it is today, and was even considered insulting by some of the older generation. Martin Luther King Jr. used the word Black in some references to his racial group, though the predominant and formal term used by him and the Civil Rights Movement during his era was Negro. Do you think, this is a question I'm asking you guys who are listening, do you think MLK would have co-signed with Jesse Jackson changing our name to African American? Now, let's talk about the sinister game that was played against indigenous Black folks. And I don't care what you guys say, we are indigenous. If this government went so far as to change our name several times, you don't think they hid why they did it? You don't even bother to ask yourself the question, why did this country change their names several times? Okay, now let's talk about how the sinister game was played against indigenous Black people to steal their land and evade their sovereignty. The reclassification of some indigenous people as Negro or Black in official documents served as a tool of paper genocide or administrative genocide to legally erase their indigenous identity, facilitating the seizure of their lands and destruction of tribal sovereignty. This reclassification was part of a broader systemic effort by state and federal governments to dispose Black Americans, including those with indigenous heritage, of an estimated 12 to 16 million acres of land over the 20th century. They stole a total of 90 million acres. Mechanisms of land theft through reclassification and related legal maneuvers, erasers of indigenous status by officially reclassifying individuals as Negro, authorities could deny their indigenous ancestry, thus invalidating their claims to tribally held or individually owned land that was protected under different laws and treaties. I was doing some research. I cannot remember what I was doing. This is just something I'm adding to this video. This article came into my inbox and it said, the title is "Sorry White Nationalist Europeans Were Black Until the Rise of Rome and Rome Was Multiracial." And then it says, I'm just going to skim through it a little bit. I'm going to get to the scientific part of the article. This guy named Joseph Chavit summarizes the paper of Professor Peretti and colleagues. Researchers at the University of Ferrara in Italy studied the genomes of 348 people who lived between 45,000 and 17 years ago across Europe and Western Asia. Their findings show that about 63% of ancient Europeans had dark skin. Only about 8% had pale skin. The rest had tones in between. Now, what I can do is I can attach this article to the description. But I put that in there to say that, again, I keep reiterating that the world was black. I know it's hard for you guys to believe it and don't want to receive it, but I'm going to say this too. Black women carry the gene or DNA, I forgot what it's called, mitochondrial DNA or gene that allows us to give birth to white people, lighter people. We're the only group of people on this earth who can do that. No other group on this earth can produce black. Black comes from us. So let that sink in. Okay, let's go on. Ask how many. Okay, this is a question that I have been thinking about for past few weeks. I was thinking about how a lot of us are researching our genealogy, our family tree, and I was saying to myself, you know what? The folks that I have personally spoken to are videos I looked online talking about our family tree or them researching their family tree. You know what I've never heard someone say or anyone say? I never heard them saying, you know what, I was researching my family tree and I went back several generations and I discovered that one of my grandparents actually did come from the continent of Africa. I've never heard that. I have heard people, they went back as far as further than 7 generations, and they say that every single one of their great grandparents came from this continent, the continent of America. I've never heard any black American say, or those called black Americans say that they have done research and actually found out that one of their great grandparents down the line actually came from the continent of Africa. So you really think they had the physical capability of coming that way by a ship? And then some people keep asking, where are the ships? As much as they like to preserve these plantation houses that were nightmares to our ancestors, they did ungodly things in those plantations. Where are these ships that transported us here? It has to be more than one, because that was rough on them kind of vessels at that time, traveling literally thousands of miles by ship. Let's continue. What Smokey Robinson said, directed to Jesse Jackson and whoever else was involved, that's the question I have. How come we didn't get a chance, or how come I didn't get a chance to vote for who I would like to be? Who gave you the right on this earth to make that decision for me? Who to just wake up one day or whatever you was plotting and planning, however long you was doing it, saying, hey, we're going to change this whole group of people name and we not about to get their input. Who gave you the right to do that? Smokey says he is not African American, nor is he particularly interested in establishing closer ties to Africa. This is coming from the article I found about this subject. And then it talks about him writing a poem, and then he also warned Black Americans to be weary of yearning for Africa. This is the thing. You notice I don't see them doing it as much as they did about a year or two ago, when they were just like really hot and pressed with trying to get us to locate to whatever country in Africa. Remember, you even heard celebrities coming out talking about it. You saw them in interviews on YouTube talking about how they went to Africa and, thinking about buying property. And it was just like really, they was pressing it, right? And then you have some people who actually relocated Africa, came back telling you, I had to come back. And hey, why are you guys trying to get us to go to Africa so bad, but you guys are migrating here? Doesn't it sound like some kind of switcheroo? Let's get the majority of Black Americans to come over here, help us build our infrastructure, and then we gonna come over there to a country that's already built. It's like, don't be fooled by these people, folks. If anyone could convince Black Americans to change their names, it would have been Jesse Jackson. After all, he became an important political power broker in 1988 after seeking to become the Democratic Party's presidential candidate. And though he did not win the nomination, he ran a very good race and won more than 7 million votes. This led the New York Times to describe 1988 as the year of Jackson. It was the activist Ramona Edlin, president of the National Urban Coalition, who persuaded Jackson to press for the African American name change. Calling ourselves African American is the first step in the cultural offensive, said Edlin. Change here can change the world. Smokey says he is not an African American, nor is he particularly interested in establishing closer ties with Africa. In his poem, he warned Black Americans to be weary of yearning for Africa. If you go to Africa in search of your race, you'll find out quick that you are not an African American. You're just a Black American taking up space, he claimed. And then as I was thinking to myself, remember about 2 years ago, they were pressing real hard for us to migrate to Africa, right? Even had celebrities going to Africa saying, wow, yes, I would love to do this. And, just really trying to manipulate us and directly or indirectly convince us to relocate to Africa. And here's the thing. You might have gotten us if you guys wasn't pressed on coming here. So if your continent and your country is so great, why are you pressed on coming here and not ever going back? So it seemed like they was trying to do the little switcheroo. Let's get them to come over here and then convince them to help build our infrastructure. And then we're going to go to their country that's already built. Don't let them fool you. Let's go on. By changing from Black to African, Jackson hoped to alter the way Black people thought of themselves and Africa, and perhaps ignite to a new mass movement like civil rights in the 1950s and the 60s. Why are you guys trying so hard to get us to relate to that continent? Do y'all do that to white Americans who've never been to Europe? Their families migrated here, and some of them in the 1700s, some of them in the 1800s, some 1700s. Do you do all this to convince them to go back to Europe? At the 1889 African American Summit in New Orleans, it looked as though something new was happening. America's Black leadership had in the past concerned itself mostly with domestic policy, but at the New Orleans summit, it was clear there was a newfound confidence and daring among African American leaders. There were calls for resolutions on reparations for slavery against apartheid, calls for fair trade, and a square deal for Africa. It was the activist Ramona Edlin, president of the National Urban Coalition, who persuaded Jesse Jackson to press. Again, persuading him to change our names. But the change to African American from Black was not immediate. It was slow and protracted. A 1991 survey by the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies in Washington found that 3 years after Jackson called for a change of name, only 15% used the term African American, while 72% continue to call themselves Black. But a little over 10 years later, in 2003, things had changed dramatically. A poll found that almost half of Blacks preferred the term African American, 35% like Black, and 17% like both terms. You said it so damn much, people don't have a choice but to like it. You keep saying something repetitively, people are going to eventually like it. Like a song you don't like. You do not like hearing that song, but every time you're at work sitting at your desk, you hear it. You hear it in your car, and you eventually start liking the song you don't like. But though African American has become, in almost 25 years in use, the accepted way to describe Black people in America, John McWhorter, 47, a conservative commentator and author of the book Authentically Black, still prefers to be called Black. To term ourselves as part African, says McWhorter, reinforces a sad implication that our history is basically slave ships, plantations, lynching, and that we need to look back to Mother Africa to feel good about ourselves. about a place we never been to. I'm not talking about those who visited, who may have recently relocated out there. I'm saying the bulk of us do not have a connection to Africa whatsoever. And if the way it looked to me, even the ones who are born in that continent or on that continent don't have a connection to it. Because you wouldn't be so comfortable traveling around the world, making a new home in other countries and not going back. As for dropping African America as some want to, Edelin thinks this would be a bad idea. I don't think it would. But she does say that if a better term was found, she would support its use. The young people I talk to are not against it, Edelin says. They are happy with it. If there should be a change, Edelin says, it would have to be something more Pan-African. I would like to know if Edelin is indigenous to this land, her grandparents, parents indigenous to this land, or is she an immigrant? Because why would you push for this? Pan-Africa has never done anything for us. Why? The question is, why are you guys trying so hard to make us identify with Africa? It has nothing to do with love. It has nothing to do with care. I guarantee you it has to do all with money. Let's go on. And while Edelin 67 is willing to accept change, Motown Records singing star Smokey Robinson is not. Smokey 72 grew up in the 1960s during a time when he says black was beautiful and when people were black and proud. He outlined his support for black and his opposition for African American in an angry poem broadcast on U.S. television a few years ago. I forgot, I gotta see what year this article is. And then a man by the name of, his name is Chika. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. I'm not even going to try. But he's Nigerian born. He's a U.S. based editor. Understands what Mr. Robinson said about people who were born in Africa. They should be called African American. He said he is not comfortable either being called African American. That's what I'm saying. Why are you guys trying to call us a name that they don't even want to be called? And they are from Africa. It's like, leave us alone. This is because Chika says he was born and bred in Africa and hopes one day to return there, though he has lived in the United States for more than 30 years. But you want to return there. Okay. But even as Africans and African Americans are arriving this month to South Africa to find ways of forging closer ties with one another, back in the United States, a small but significant number of African Americans are doing their best to see to it that things fall apart. Far from coming closer together, these naysayers would like to keep Africa at arm's length and cast off all things African, including the name African American, a name Black Americans adopted 24 years ago at the urging of Jesse Jackson. Black does not describe our situation, Jackson said in a 1988 speech. Jackson said in a 1988 speech encouraging Black Americans to drop Black and replace it with Africa. We are an African American heritage, Jackson forcefully argued. Though the term was adopted by many others, and here's the thing, Jesse Jackson of all would know where the majority of us came from. That's what these people that are supposedly leaders, which they aren't. It's a sad state, man. Let's go on. Though the term was adopted by many others continue to resist and reject it. Among them is George. Jibri George, a 38-year-old businessman in Miami, Florida. I am not African American, insists George, who set up a Facebook site called Don't Call Me African American. The site, which has had thousands of visitors, has made George a kind of a folk hero to Black Americans who want nothing to do with Africa, a place they seen as riven with disease and death and filled with dark memories of their slave past. So George and others do not want to be called African American. What do they want to be called? George said he would simply be called American. He would accept black or perhaps person of color. But the term African American, George protests, just doesn't settle right in my stomach. And I don't want to be called person of color because they always find a manipulative way to put us all in one category. Herman Cain, the former Republican presidential candidate, objects to the term too, asked by CNN host Piers Morgan why he objected to being called African American. Cain said his heritage had not been shaped by Africa, but by America. We went through the civil rights movement, so I prefer the term Black American rather than African American. That's going back too far, Cain said. Now, I know I've heard some things Herman Cain said, and which would want me to, for him to be quiet for the rest of his life, but I can agree with what he said. I can completely agree with what he said. Africa didn't shape us. We have been, okay, let's go on. It has been almost 25 years since Black Americans, thanks to Jesse Jackson's efforts, stopped calling themselves black. That's not true. We still do. And began calling themselves African American. No, I only did that during my school days. After I got out of school and started doing research on my own. No, I don't call myself African American. Exchanging a racial label for an ethnic one that points clearly to their origins in Africa, but it's just a bland, blatant name. Like, people who come from Africa don't call themselves African. They call themselves by the name, by the country they came from. They just be playing all kind of games with us, don't they? To be called black is baseless, Jackson said in December 1988. Jackson said in a December 1988 speech to a group of black leaders who had gathered in Chicago to discuss what they call a new national black agenda. You discussed that without our input, sir. Let's go on. Central to this new national black agenda was the new name African American, which Jackson said had cultural integrity and will put black people in America in their proper historical context. No, it don't. It's a lie, man. It's a lie that has been going on too long. Let's go on. And I said this before in a video. Anything this country tells you and wants you to believe, you should always question it, because they have hid so much from us. They have hid so much from us, our true identity. Why is it that they want you to believe you're from Africa? But they hide everything else. So when they start trying to, hey, you came from Africa. Hey, remember, you guys came from Africa. You should have been questioning from day one, because they don't tell us the truth. So why would they tell you so convincingly that you're from Africa? Let's go on. Every ethnic group in this country has a reference to some land base, some historical cultural base, Jackson pointed out. There are Armenian, Jewish, Arabs, Italian. These hyphenated Americans, Jackson said, had a degree of accepted and reasonable pride, and has succeeded in connecting their heritage to their mother country and also to where they are now in America. To Jackson, African Americans had in 1988 hit that level of cultural maturity, and no, we are cool with knowing that we are indigenous to America. That is our ethnicity. We are American. We are Americans. That's just it. We're the only group in this country who can truly say we are American. Everybody else, y'all came by way of ships. Whether you swam your ass over here, took an airplane, a boat. So let's go on. And like I said, more and more truth is going to come out. Watch. Today, foreign-born blacks from the Caribbean and from Africa, like Shaka, or Shaka, I think it's Shika, make up about 30% of the black population in New York City. But no matter how long they live in the U.S., those born in Africa will never accept being called African American. They They say they are continental Africans. That's what Shika said, a term he claims he coined. Okay. That part right there should just sum it up. These people don't like being called African American, so why are they trying to force it on us? I am not an African American, Shika says, a little dismissively. Maybe my kids are happy to be called African American, but not me. But despite all the controversy, African and Africans in the diaspora have never been closer, says Chika, who is the chair of the African Union Diaspora Task Group in the U.S. and plans to be in South Africa for the 25th May Global African Diaspora Summit. Sure, some still want to distance themselves from Africa, and some in Africa will want to distance themselves from the diaspora. But most know we are moving together. No, that's not true. So, no. And now that we're delineating, nah, we good. We are better than good. I've never had this much joy for my people as I do now. And you can just feel that we're actually, by delineating, we're getting our identity. We're closer to our identity than we ever were. Now that we're delineated, it's like these people was put in our midst to help keep us confused and relying on them to give us our identity. And at the same time, mocking and laughing at us. You don't know where you came from. You don't even have a country. You know, it was like, that don't make you feel good, being talked to like that. And here we are celebrating you and receiving you and respecting your culture, and then you're disrespecting us. It's like walking up to somebody with a smile on your face like, hey, brother, how you doing? Hey, sister. And they looking at you head to toe like, if you don't get your ass out my face. That's how they been towards us. And we said enough. You know what? I'm responsible for how I allow you to treat me. I'm not going to keep giving you my kindness, extending my kindness to you, thinking because we are the same tone, some of us, and therefore we went through the same struggles also, we're brothers and sisters. And you're like, no the hell we're not. Akata. Keep it moving. But now it's like, no, you're Africans. Stop saying you're not from Africa. You're Africans. No, you want us to be from Africa because that's how you was getting where you are. Now, you was aligning yourself with us, but distancing yourself from us. Aligning yourself to us enough to take from us. And then when you took enough, you told us to kick rocks. You can't tell us to kick rocks too many times. Because what we did, we gonna kick rocks, and we gonna watch you kicking rocks too. All the way back to your country that you say you love. But you ain't been there in 50 years. Okay, folks, I hope this video was informative. I hope it gave you a clear understanding as to who started calling us African Americans that we did not agree to. We didn't take up a vote. They didn't even mail a survey to us. They didn't give us a choice to say we agree to this. We want this. They just chose it. They chose it on their own. So now we're choosing on our own to say, no, we're not African Americans. And if you're going to call us anything, you better call us indigenous to America and stop lying. All right, folks, I'm out. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you for checking this entire video out. Thank you for sharing it with folks who want to talk, want to hear about history and facts and things that I talk about in these videos can be verified. If you take a little time out your life, you can verify them. Okay, I'm about to get up out of here. And thank you for your time and attention. See you guys in the next video.